Welcome to Study Loop.
For this problem, we are going to define a new function, f star. Now, we have a function f of a, and f is a function from a to b. Okay, so we've been told that. Now, there could be cases where there is an element a that's undefined, that the function is undefined at a given point. For example, if I had 1 over a, that's undefined if a is 0. So we can have some places like that in this function. So what we're going to do with this f star function is say, if my a is in the domain of definition for f, then f star of a just equals f of a. That's this first piece. However, if I have an a that is undefined for my function, we're going to give the value of f star of a, we're going to say that's u. And u is not an element of set B. So for my f star is going to be a function from A to the union of B and U. So it's going to that piece there. So that's how we're defining f star. Now, the first question we want to ask is this a function? Is f star really a function? Well, let's think about what a function is. A function says every input only goes to one output. Now, I know that f is a function. We've been told that. So the first piece, anything that falls into this first half of my piecewise definition, is definitely a function. So the question is it possible for f star to have a value of f of a and u at the same time? And the answer is no, because the only time I'm going to have a value of u is for any a where there is no value for the function. So it will never have, f star will never have two values at once. So it is a function. And it's a total function because every single a is now small a. So every element in that set a is defined for my f star. It's either defined for my function, in which case it's f of a, or anything that's not defined has the value of u. So this is a total function. So let's take a look at the prior exercise, exercise 79. Now, there were 5 problems given, 3 of which were partial functions. If you haven't had a chance to look at 79 yet, I'd encourage you to look at that for a moment, then come back to this exercise. So let's take a look. We had 3 that were not total functions. They're partial functions. And those were A, C, and E. So let's take a look at what those were. A, this is going back to 79, a function f of n equals 1 over n. And this is going, f was a function from z to r. Now, in each of these cases, I'm going to just be simple across the board. I'm going to say that my u is going to be the imaginary number I. As long as u is not in the set B, the set that you're going to, you can pick any u you want, but I'm just going to be consistent and use the imaginary I. So if I wanted to put the f star for this function, any value for n for which the function is defined will stay 1 over n. Anything else will go to I. Now, the only number for which this function is undefined is 0. For everything else, I can stay with the function. So that's how I would define f star for this function f of n. Okay, how about C? C said this is in 2 variables, f of mn, and it's going to equal m divided by n, and I am going from ZZ to Q. That's the domains that I have. So again, I'm going to set my f star. Anything for which my function is defined will remain the function. And I'm going to use I just across the board for simplicity's sake for my value for u. Again, the only place this is undefined is if my denominator is 0. Everything else, any value of m will be okay on the top, and n as long as it does not equal 0. And that looks like one word. Let me see if I can erase that. So m, again, the m doesn't matter. I'm just looking at the n. So if n is not equal to 0, it's on the top. If it is equal to 0, it's going to be equal to I. Now E. I have another function in 2 variables. And in this case, it is m minus n. And I am assuming, or I'm not assuming, I'm told that m is greater than n. And this is here is my domain. Okay. Well, in this case, if I'm going to put together my f star function, for any m's and n's where it's defined, it will be equal to my function. For everything else, I'm going to let it equal I. And where is my function defined? Well, my function is defined for any m greater than n. It's undefined if m is less than or equal to n. So those are my 3 f star functions for the 3 partial functions given in exercise 79.